Hi, everyone. It's me, Tim, and today I want to talk about flat management hierarchies. I don't think many of you realized that we did that at Troika, or I should say, we experimented with that at Troika. It only lasted for one project, but Arcanum was created under a completely flat hierarchy. Yes, we had three owners, and then all the employees, but I'll explain. I'm going to go through exactly what I mean by flat hierarchy. But also, part of the reason we had to have owners is there are legal reasons. You have to have someone who signs the paperwork with the lawyer, or signs the paperwork with the city of Irvine, or sign the paperwork with the county of Orange, or the state of California, or the federal government. You had to have someone who said, "Yeah, I'm in charge here," for some things external to the company. Internal, we were about as flat as you can be, and I'll walk through and explain. So this was Troika from 98 to 2001. We hired only seniors. Why? Because we wanted everybody to be on a level playing field. We expected the same experience, the same work capability, and all the benefits were going to be the same. That was really hard to do. The first thing we learned, it's hard to be flat when you have people coming in with all kinds of different abilities. Some can do more than others. Some can go deeper. Some are specialists and they can go really deeply into something that the others can't. Problem one. The second thing, we paid everybody the same amount of money. Everyone. The owners got paid the same as every single person who was employed there. And that included all the benefits, insurance, time off, bonuses that came in. We took the royalty that came in from Arcanum. We split it into two piles. One pile went to pay 50%. One went to go pay for the development of the next project, and the other half was equally distributed among everybody who worked on Arcanum. Problem, we didn't have enough money to do that at the beginning. There were so many costs, unexpected costs, in opening up a new company that Leonard and Jason and I underpaid ourselves, vastly underpaid ourselves for the first year. We kind of needed to keep doing that, but there were issues. We were having trouble paying our own personal bills, mortgages, whatever. So we stopped doing that and just did less stuff at the company. We didn't do as many snack purchases and trying to remember. We found like a way of reducing our electric bill and some things like that. So we managed, but it was tough. We also gave everybody the same estimated slice of work. So when something had to be done, a piece of code, some art, scripting, dialogue writing, the people who were going to do it collectively decided how long these things would take and then gave everyone equal amounts of work. That failed. And let me tell you why it failed. First of all, it's really hard to estimate. But second, people didn't work at the same rate. So some people would finish their week's worth of work in 3 days. Other people wouldn't be half done at the end of the week. Some people complained, "This, you gave me too much work. There's no way this could be done." And if you watched the video where I talk about switching rackets, I switched plates with that programmer and I finished his work and he didn't finish mine. So immediately we were faced with the objective reality that people don't work at the same rate. So you can say they're equal, you can pay them, you can give them the same information and the same slice of work, and it won't be the same. We also tried no roles. Basically, we let anybody do anything they want. You want to wear a hat? You can wear that hat. Now, that didn't mean that we accepted your work. You had to do good work, as collectively the group would go, "Yes, that is a good dialogue. That is a good script. That is a good level design. That is a good quest. It's a good quest idea. That's a good quest implementation," whatever. Well, what we discovered was a lot of people want to wear lots of hats, but aren't good at wearing lots of hats, and may only be good at wearing one hat. And they don't like hearing that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I learned I don't write well. I already knew I didn't do art well. I know I don't even see colors well. So, I mean, my suggestions for interface were sometimes taken as, "That is a very interesting idea, but we're not going to do that." There were also, and this was true, I mean, other people had trouble doing other things. Sometimes people didn't want to admit they were bad. They're like, well, let me redo it. Or, I think you guys are just being picky. Or, I think it's good and you're all wrong. It's hard to manage that. Especially, keep in mind, we had a flat hierarchy. There was no appeal to authority we could do. If the group didn't think you were doing good work, you weren't doing good work. It was hard to get around that. Some people just, there's an ego that gets involved and they can't wrap around that. Also, there seem to be areas that you couldn't just decide, I'm going to put my hat on and do that. Coding, not scripting, but programming, like engine code in C, or, yeah, by that time we were still using C. And many elements of 3D art, making the models, rigging it with a skeleton, animating it. That seemed way too specialist for people to simply put a hat on and go, I'm going to do that. People tried, people failed. Also, it's very hard to say it's subjective when you do a piece of code that just throws a bunch of errors or crashes as soon as you run or runs in the game at 2 frames a second. It's hard to go. You guys are being subjective. 3D art, very similarly. I mean, if you can't get your rig animated or your skeletons bones aren't in there connected right, you can tell. So that failed. We even tried at the owner level being interchangeable, meaning Leonard and Jason and I were, separate but equal. We wanted any of us to be able to sign any contract, any invoice. If one of us couldn't be available when the lawyer came by, that was fine. We had rules in the contract about we would make an attempt to have all three of us there, but past, I think, a 24 or 48 hour waiting period, we would just go ahead and do whatever the meeting was, sign whatever needed to be signed, whatever. That also failed. It failed in an interesting way that we could not control. Publishers often wanted one of us in particular. On Sierra, that was me, and Arcanum with Sierra, that was me. But later on Activision, it was Leonard. Basically, they wanted to talk to that person. That person represented the whole team. They didn't want other people there. They wanted that person there. They wanted that person to sign this thing. They wanted that person to agree. They wanted the feedback from that person. This made things difficult. I have said before, I don't really like flying. And there was one point where Sierra said that they needed us up at Seattle when we were in SoCal, and Leonard and Jason were going to go. And when they found out I wasn't going, they're like, no, all of you need to be there. So we switched to a different day, but then one of the others, I think Jason couldn't make it. And they're like, that's okay. And I'm like, what is going on here? So when publishers want one person and a particular person, they really can't control that. You can't say, no, I'm pushing back on you, publisher. They want what they want. And you sometimes just have to give them what they want. The final thing we tried with this flat hierarchy experiment is if you go to the original Arcanum, and I think it's still like this on GOG, and you go credits, it just says Arcanum was made by, and it has like the 14 names of the people who actually worked at Troika. It just says are made by, and it was alphabetical. So I think it goes Jason Anderson, Leonard Boreski, Tim Kaine, Jesse Reynolds, Chris Jones, Jesse Reynolds, Sharon Shellman. I mean, it goes in alphabetical order because we didn't know what else to do. We didn't have roles. We didn't have defined roles. Wow. Sites did not like that, especially sites in the early 2000s. One site, it was either Moby, I think it was Moby. They listed me as the lead animator. They just, when they couldn't find out what people had done, they just randomly slotted us in. It's fixed now, but it was a big problem back then. And it was just one more thing we were trying to figure out how to take care of. Meanwhile, Sierra used titles for everything. So the credits, after it scrolls by, made by, and the Troika people, it goes into normal credits with normal roles. So again, as much as you want that flat hierarchy, you can't control it outside of that. Then there were a lot of other things, like when press would come, they'd want to talk to certain people. Some of us were better at talking to press than others. It's hard to admit that. It's hard to say, yeah, why don't we have this person talk because, when you don't talk much or you mumble or you don't give good sound bites. It's hard for people to accept that. Now, if we had had a hierarchy, we could have agreed, you're our spokesperson for press, and boom, that would be it. But when you don't have a hierarchy, it can be harsh to accept that you're not good at something. And everybody sitting at that table is looking at you going, yeah, you're not good at that. it's a lot easier to go, oh, okay, we voted Bob to do that. Bob's going to do it. I don't have to think of how bad I am at it. So guess what? The flat hierarchy experiment ended after Arcanum. We deemed it a failure on many axes. I know people will probably go, well, you didn't do this. You should have tried this. You should have tried this. We tried a lot of things. We went to a hierarchy when we bifurcated immediately into Temple of Elemental Evil and Vampire. Those had hierarchies. It worked. It just worked better. Things flowed better. People felt like they could get definitive answers. Like, is this what we're going to go with design-wise? Is this piece of code approved? Boom. There was a lead designer to go, yes. There was a lead programmer to go, yes. Things just went faster. There was less hurt feelings. We could hire people from across the spectrum. We started hiring juniors. We started people right out of college who had never worked in a game. And boom, things worked better. So when I see people talk about flat hierarchies, I go, I tried it. I didn't talk about it. I tried doing it. And it failed. I hope if you guys have better ideas and you really think you can do it, that you try it, but be prepared for problems. Personally, I see the advantage of a hierarchy. There are a lot of advantages that people maybe poo-poo and go, we're do better than that. I just think that a hierarchy provides a structure, just like code. I don't want a bunch of random modules shooting events at each other. I want a structured code base. I don't want to work in a flat hierarchy game company. I would like a structure. I would like to know who can tell me yes and no and who I can tell yes and no to. Things just work better that way. Anyway, experiment ended, and after Temple and Vampire, Troika ended. So take all this with a big grain of salt because you know how much Uncle Tim knows about business.